Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Freely Feminine podcast. Today, I'm joined by my wonderful husband, Daniel. And if you are listening to this on podcast only via Spotify or Google or Apple Podcasts, just know that there is quite a bit more on the video version of this because we ended up talking more to each other than to the microphone. So there's some nuances that you may not pick up on unless you're watching the video. This is the first time that we've done this formatting. It's the first time that I've had Daniel on the podcast. So we were sort of trial and erroring it, and we had a ton of fun recording it. But I do think that there is some detail that would be best picked up on via video. So if you are listening to this, head over to YouTube at Freely Feminine, or just hang in there and try and read between the lines a little bit on the podcast. But I think you're going to enjoy it. We talk about a ton. We're going to go over everything from, masculine and feminine polarities. We talk about, I introduced you to Daniel, obviously, but we're going to talk about the role of husband, masculinity, femininity, and the wife, kind of how we see that and how that works in our relationship. We talk about the most empowering act or feeling as a husband. So how can a wife empower her husband? We talk about how to learn how to create a masculine frame if you don't have that as a woman. We talk about the 3 important traits of a masculine, how women emasculate men, and to kind of start to fix that up. Arguments, cycle syncing as a benefit to marriage, red flags when you're dating, the best way to communicate with him that allows him to open up. So we really cover a lot. And also, we didn't even touch on half the questions. I think we were trying to keep it to an hour, and we went over. So there's definitely room for a part 2 to this podcast if that is something that people are interested in. I also wanted to let you know that we do curse on this podcast, and this is just a natural flow of conversation. So keep it within the perspective of this is how our marriage works. And we have created a lot of very intentional ways of working to honor both of us as male, female, as husband, wife. And so we have made very specific sacrifices to make sure that we can have a family day every Friday and prioritize one another. And we've set up our relationship very intentionally to cultivate something that works for us. And so we're going to be speaking about all of these things within the context of our own relationship. We don't have children yet, so that would look a little bit different, but we've also intentionally set up our relationship with a really strong foundation of prioritizing one another so that if and when we do decide to have children, that's a natural just expansion of what we're already doing. So it's important to keep in mind our personal experience is what we're talking about. It's going to look different for everybody, but some of these concepts are going to apply to everybody. Most of these concepts, that's why we're talking about it. They'll apply to everybody, but how we actually act them out looks different in our marriage than it will for yours. So I hope you enjoy this. Definitely, we do curse. This is an adult conversation, so I wouldn't have little people around when you're listening to this. And yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear if this is something you want to hear more about. And if you have additional questions, definitely make sure you leave them below in the comments. If you're on YouTube, shoot us a DM over on Instagram at Rosewood Woman. And yeah, we'd love to hear your thoughts and enjoy. Okay. Not really. Is that too far?
No. We're matching.
We
So I
are.
gotta change your shirt.
No, I feel like this is really good. That's exactly how we work. But we're in. I feel so far away from you. Oh, I gotta make sure it's recording. Okay. The only thing is, you probably don't need to be that close to the mic. You don't need to be that. Okay. You
No, I can't. It's funnier if I don't.
Get off to the side. Is that light in the way? Is that in the way?
What? No?
That is a two in your face.
I was like, hear me.
Can we fix my chair at some point so I stop turning?
I don't think that's something you can fix.
No.
A rotational chair.
But it only turns left.
No, I definitely can't fix
It
that.
feels like Zoolander. I can only turn left. I should probably do that. I'm really hoping the audio works. We're gonna have to do this over. Okay. All right, this is weird because we're not actually on with anybody. Hello. Welcome back.
Jeez.
How do you feel?
Weird.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Freely Feminine podcast. Today, I'm joined by my husband, Daniel. So I put on my stories a couple of days ago if anybody wanted to hear Daniel's perspective of cycle syncing and all of the things, masculinity, femininity, polarity, all of these fancy words that I'll explain to you before we answer the questions. And I had like 85% of my audience say yes, they wanted him on the podcast, and people asked quite a few questions.
I want to know the 15% that said no.
Nobody said no.
Oh.
Just people watched and then didn't say anything.
Oh.
So
It was like, no, I don't want to deal with this.
So sorry, we're watching. Our cat is in his little room being a little spaz for the first time ever in one of the beds we bought him that he has never touched before today.
That we know of.
That we know of. That's true. He could sleep in there. We don't know it. So we're going to introduce him first a little bit so that everybody gets to know him. And for those of you who are listening to this just on audio, we are also recording this on video. So if you hear us saying things that sound like you need a visual, you might. So I will also have this over on YouTube at Freely Feminine, and you can watch us and our weirdly matching outfits. And this is how we operate. This is actually a really good introduction to how we work, because 9 times out of 10, I feel like we're matching.
Unintentionally.
Granted, we both have a weird obsession with OD green, and we also are very simple dressers, and we like having easy to match outfits. So we do a lot of white, black, gray, not a lot of white.
I can't do white.
I have a lot of white.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel doesn't do white because if he has white, it turns a different color quickly, like black or brown or red if he's bleeding. So anyway,
a red shirt. Yeah.
It's your red shirt. We didn't buy a red shirt, but we have a lot of red shirts. So anyway, we are both somehow wearing the same color and color scheme, and it's great. Okay, so Daniel is my husband, so that's the first. That's a
We couldn't figure that out.
And do you want to introduce yourself? What you do?
Sure. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm her wife. What? She's my wife. I'm her husband. There we go. Nailed it.
What do you do for a living, Daniel?
Like climbing, cut down trees and trim trees. I do stuff with trees.
Tree guy.
I'm a tree guy.
So for those of you who need more explanation, because I did not know what that meant when we first met, he is an arborist, but he actually physically climbs trees and limbs them or tops them and sequentially removes them for safety reasons, for fire mitigation. Sometimes clients just don't like a tree. That happens, and that always makes us sad. But he is one of the few people who is trained to actually climb. So he has a cool harness. It's super fun. It's really hot to watch. I could not do his job because it's scary and he goes really high up in trees, but it's cool to watch. And he's been doing it for 10 years.
I've been doing stuff with trees for 10 years.
Yeah, long time. He knows
climbing
what he's
for
doing.
9.
Climbing for 9. So yeah, he knows what he's doing. And he works with his hands, and that's why we referred to blood earlier, because he's almost always got some scratch, wound, puncture, scar in the making.
There's
somewhere on his body. So I buy a lot of
flexing for the game.
I have a lot of white. I'm flexing
okay,
to it, but you can't see it. I'm wearing my biggest, fluffiest thing ever. So anyway, he's very cool. and masterful at his craft. And yeah, maybe we'll get into that and the value of hardworking blue-collar men that we need on this planet. So is there anything else that's relevant, important, how we met? So we met.
I helped you move because you were a friend of my friend.
A friend of a friend. Literally, it was that situation where I had just sworn off boys, men, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about dating. I'm not going to worry about guys. Like, I'm just good by myself. And it was when I really genuinely felt like I was just fine on my own, complete, fulfilled. He showed up out of nowhere, and I remember having conversations with my best friend Maya, who was like there through thick and thin with all of this. And I remember talking to her about, how am I ever going to meet a guy? Because I don't go to bars and I don't have large friend groups and I don't like know how to connect with people. And he literally walked into my house. So
sounds creepy.
It's encouraging with a friend. It's encouraging for those of you who are like, I don't know how I'm going to meet a guy. Like, don't stress about it.
Because he'll just walk in here now.
You might. You don't know. You don't have to worry about it though, because he's going to show up in whatever way he needs to. And it's great. Like, you will magnetize the right guy if you're in a good place. When you're ready, he will come. So, also, I'm just going to say right now, if you have little children and you tend to listen to my podcasts with people around and children around, don't. Because we'll probably curse, and that might not be comfortable for some people, and that's okay.
Try not to.
But the reality is we do curse, and if that's a concern of yours, definitely don't have little kids in the room. And we're also talking about relationships. So I don't know if any of these questions have anything to do with sex and intimacy. I don't think any of them will lead to that. I don't know, but I have a lot of questions. So if any of it leads to that, yeah, we'll talk about it. So yeah, he showed up at my apartment to help me move. That's how we met. And then we took it super slow. He took it really slow. That was one of the things we'll segue into masculine, feminine, and polarity and all that. But like, that was one of the things was I was in hustle, rush, like get the thing done. And I wanted him to move much more quickly than he did. And the faster I tried to move, I feel like the slower you went. Or it was like, no, you like my commitment to you isn't dependent upon the speed at which we move. It was like, I'm committed to you, and therefore we're not in a rush to do anything. And that was so good for me, even though it was really hard because we spent 4 years dating before we got married.
Yes.
Right around there. Yeah. Something else you guys should know is we have a very long like relationship with like not very specific milestones. And so if we're talking about length of time or specific dates, I'm not going to be good at that. So we're going to give you like rough estimates, 4-ish years.
Well, we dated for 4-ish. We've now been together for 9, including dating.
When is Labor Day?
September or something?
September? Almost 9 years? 10 years. Is it 10 years?
No.
14.
It was 14. Today's 23 today. This year's 23.
Yeah, okay. So like almost exactly 9 years we've been together officially. And then married for 4.
Yeah, so we almost dated for 5. Yeah.
Yeah, so we almost dated for 5 years. So yeah, patience was something that I learned.
You're welcome.
Really early on, but it was really good. And like we got all our crap out early, like really early. I feel like we didn't. Yeah, it wasn't like something that was dragged out. It was like everything like surfaced really quickly.
I don't even care anymore.
Camera. So yeah, we got a lot of our crap out early with our relationship, which was really good. And then I feel like we just got to build a really super solid foundation early on after that. And then by the time we got married, we were like, sweet, like we're good. We're solid. And it helped us like just continue to grow and be in a good place, which was cool. Anything to add?
No, this is my first relationship.
That's true.
So like,
Yeah.
it was all, I had to figure stuff out slow because I'm a little slow.
No, you're not slow. Well, you are. And that's it though, is you are, and that's what's good. Is you're slow. Like you slowed me down. You created a place of like, because there's security, we can go slow. I don't know. I feel like there's something to that, and I haven't thought through that.
Well, that's on you then.
It is on me. I don't know. Doctor. Okay, we're gonna get into the questions. So that's the gist about us. That's not a lot, and we're not doing a full like husband tag. If that's something you guys want, where you really want
I don't still need to understand what that means.
I don't fully either. Something YouTubers do.
Good thing I'm not that.
Okay, so some of these questions that we got, I got like probably 20. Some of these questions that I got are a little bit similar to other questions.
Okay.
So we're gonna answer them. Maybe I don't know. I'm not sure how we're gonna do this. We're flying by the seat of our pants, people. I'm very used to having just me on the podcast or guests with a very specific structure, but with you, I don't want that. I want it to be natural. All right, let's start with some questions that are kind of broader. One of the questions we got was, what is Daniel's idea of masculinity / like the role of the husband, and then vice versa, femininity and the wife's role?
Those are very huge questions.
Yeah.
With lots of variety of answers.
When you start with just masculinity, like what do you view as a man's role in a marriage?
In a marriage specifically?
Yes.
Then providing and caring, like providing for family and taking care of, specifically in terms of financial and or like financial and security mostly. Again, it can be very different because people's situations are different. So I hate giving one straight answer to that. Because I'm not like anti-feminine or something like that. If a woman wants to go work, go freaking work. But the dude, if the dude's a dude, he'll be trying to take care of you financially, emotionally. He's gonna try his best not to tax it in any way and just provide. Both. Financially, security.
Security.
And like as little impact on day to day as possible, other than providing the essentials.
Well, I feel like provision is one of those things that a lot of guys or people just in general, like when I have conversations, it like a lot of people think of it only in money terms, only like monetarily, and provision from the masculine, at least in my experience and what I've seen, is like it's in all areas. It's provision of safety, provision of money, understanding that like we're in a really bizarre financial climate right now, and that like it's very hard to live on one income. And also like women are coming to this place of understanding that there's a place for us in the corporate market that allows us to express our creativity and those things on our hearts that like we really want to be able to get out to the world and like support other people with. So that's not a bad thing to like want to provide and contribute financially. And like part of how I view the feminine role in the financial realm is like he's the provider, and also like me as the support to him gets to also get money so that I can help relieve some of that pressure and also like empower him to do more things and like pursue his passion. So like I get to support him too. So I think there's kind of a like an overly simplified perspective of provision right now. And
well, like you said, right now it's rough enough economically that chances are you probably need two incomes to stay afloat. And so in terms of primary, secondary, like if the dude's a good dude, he's going to do as much as he can to provide as much as he can. Even probably if he's a really good dude, even at the sacrifice of himself. So that you can do what you want to do, but chances are he'll probably need help at this point.
Yeah. And have it, I think, having the grace for, I feel like this is a little bit of a tangent, but having for a guy to have grace for himself to understand that like a woman's financial support does not make you a bad provider, I think is really important, because like we're in Biden's America.
I was gonna go there, but I didn't. So yeah.
It's just not the same. Like we can't keep comparing. I think this is one of the things that I run into a lot with my own clients is it's not the same type of situation as it was in 1945 when women entered the workforce. Like that was a whole different kind of issue. Like I don't think a lot of women realize that like when women entered the workforce in corporate America, it was the atomic girls and they were getting exposed to radiation. Like there's a lot of misconceptions about what women look like in the workforce. So I think that's like a whole other conversation, but it's important to understand that like we can't keep going back to what it was, because we have to start with where we are and go forward. And so having the like being okay with the female contributing to the relationship financially is important, and also homemaking is important. And like I think if we were in an ideal world, having like the man be the provider because that's where he feels fulfilled, and then the woman being the homemaker because that's where she feels fulfilled, and then her creative ventures, it's just bonus money, like because that also helps her feel fulfilled. That's the ideal. I really do think, because like a woman as the sole provider and that weight being on her, it doesn't work for her nervous system. And
if there's a guy involved in that situation, if he's not trying to provide and is happy just doing nothing, consider the dude that you're with. Because if he's skimping, helping you out, there's other compromises he'll make at the same time.
Can you expand? I'm curious what you mean by
that. That being your biggest relationship, if he's skimping on the biggest relationship he has, that implies if he does have work, he's skimping at work, which means he's going to get fired. If he's with your kid, he's cutting corners with your kid.
I think that's true.
If the biggest thing in your life, the biggest relationship in your life is the thing that you're being lazy with, you're going to be lazy everywhere else as well.
I agree with that. Also, it just made me realize while we were talking about this, we've been together a long time, and we have a lot of ways of communicating that I think are not super verbal.
What just happened?
Realize that. Because you started saying something and I was like, oh, and then I was like, we're done. We don't have to continue going because I knew what you were saying.
Oh.
I was like, wait.
What happened? What did I do?
That was great. I'm realizing like we have a lot of nonverbal communication that hopefully we make things very clear and we don't just fill in telepathically. I think that's true. I think having, again, that's the man in his full masculinity, hormones firing, being in that energy, like he wants to provide, he wants to take care of his people, his family, his community at the sacrifice of his own comfort for the comfort of others. And it's very linear. It's very driven. It's very like, that's the beauty of the masculine, feminine, like dynamic, and the kind of like, I describe it as like waffle brain and spaghetti brain. Like men have a very specific, like they have the boxes in their brain, right? Where it's like, they're thinking about the single box and what's in that box and how to accomplish what's in that box. And it's very focused. And then the woman has like all of the things are all together in her brain. And that's why it feels kind of chaotic, but that allows her to multitask and all of that. So when we're talking about like providing, a man in his masculinity will provide to the extent, like to the maximum extent that he needs to in order for his family to feel safe. And he'll have the drive and the like motivation and the focus to go after that in order to take care of his family. That doesn't mean that like circumstances can't suck and make it really hard for that to happen, but it means that he'll be committed to the commitment of provision. He'll be committed to provision. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like this last year was really hard because we were in an RV in the middle of nowhere.
I couldn't find work.
And he couldn't find work because we were literally in a town of 500
people.
500 people. So like there literally wasn't work. That doesn't mean that he wasn't providing, and that's where he stepped up and, oh my gosh, I keep joking. I'm getting too excited. He stepped up and like provided in other ways, and that's where I think it's really like he provided to whatever degree he could provide in a weird situation. And so it's like he stepped up and he did 3-hour road trips into town to get us what we needed once a week while I kept working. And like he was the one who was doing all of the extra stuff, and creating a container of safety and security and provision for me, despite the financial piece not being there. So provision is not as,
it's not only financial.
Yeah, it's not one-dimensional like we think it is. And that's really important, because otherwise it's gonna, like, if provision was just financial, every woman would just be looking for like
the dude that works 100 hours a week.
Yeah, which sucks. Like that sucks.
Which always has its own problems. Yeah. If all the dude is doing is just working.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Because that's not providing everything. That's not actual provision. Provision is not just money.
That's purely financial and nothing else.
Yeah. So masculinity in marriage, the role of the husband is provision, security, without a doubt, in whatever way that looks. What else? Anything else? Those two things.
You should have just left it. We answered that well, and now I feel like I'm not answering something. Because you decided to go through it.
I had a little brain fart because I was like, security. And then I was like, security. And then my brain stopped working. Okay. So, that's yes,
that sounds very simple.
But
it's very nuanced at the same time for being simple.
Yeah.
Like, it's a simple answer, but there's a lot of nuance in that simplicity.
They're like all encompassing. Like those are huge words that mean a lot in a relationship. And like I think too, just like the steadiness in terms of like masculine, feminine specifically, it's him providing like the part of security maybe is the steadiness, like the even keeledness, holding space for the feminine chaos when that shows up, because it does, and allowing for, again, like holding the container, holding the structure for the feminine to kind of lose it if she needs to, in a good way, like go through all of her ebbs and flows. And that's something that you do really well, is like if like no matter where I'm at, if I need to say, hey, can I vent something, or hey, like I'm having a hard day or whatever, like you just are there holding like space of safety and like steadiness. And I think that's a huge bit, because it's like when the masculine's doing this, the feminine's doing this, and that's part of like the really cool dynamic of the two, where it's like you keep me safe, I keep you free, like that kind of concept. But I think that's part of it in a marriage, is it's like if you're both overly like even keel, like overly steady, like I don't want to be 100% steady the way that you're steady for me. I want to be able to
not steady.
I want to have like the ebbs and the flows, because that's part of my feminine, and that allows me to get into super creative expression, or that allows me to go into like the depths of things or whatever. Like that's how I work, and I need to be able to do that, and I need to be able to have like a little bit more internal energy in my luteal phase, and I need to be able to feel really expressive and like want to go do whatever in my ovulatory phase. Like I need to be able to have ebbs and flow. And he's like solid, consistent. Like, what do you need? How can I support you in this time? Like, he asks me all that all the time. Like, how can I support you? What do you need? And that's like a really, really important part of the masculine. And yeah, I think that's part of it, at least from my perspective. So yeah, that's the role. Feminine? Women?
You answered in the middle of that. Otherwise, we're going to do a whole podcast on this one question.
How do you see it though? How do you see it?
Well, there's like support, like all the stuff that we already kind of talked about. Yeah, it wasn't specifically, but like you covered it when you're talking like supporting the dude, like taking like, not that the dude is more important, but like, I almost don't know how to answer this, because I know my part pretty well, but I don't know what she has to do for me all the time.
I think I think that's part of it. It's like, it's all of the little nuancy things. Like a lot of the feminine it's like not the little stuff, but it's like the nuanced stuff, the peripheral. Like that's what a lot of the feminine is I have a friend who described it as the aroma of the home. And I really like that, where it's like I'm like setting the tone and like making sure that the things are taken care of so that you can go and accomplish the things that you need to accomplish in like a really like a much more simplistic and like easeful way.
As me being me, the only thing I need is just help on the back end doing the stuff that I don't have time for.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
if I'm doing the provision and security, it's like I just need help on the back end to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's like things things genuinely as simple as like making sure that you've got lunch ready and like healthy food to keep you fueled as best as I can. And like, making sure that the home is welcoming for you to come back to. And like that, like all of the, like you said, like the back end stuff is really important because that sets the tone for how you can interact and how you can like go forward into your day.
Yeah, and one of the biggest parts of that is that I'm not coming home to more drama.
Yeah.
Because you're very good at like, I don't come home to a list of things that have been wrong or like that's where dudes want to stay at work all the time because they come home and it just gets worse when they're at home because they can't leave it.
Yeah. Also, our dog is here. If you can't hear her, she is napping in the background. And she barks and whines and growls in her sleep. So if you hear her, that's why.
You can't see her.
Oh, I thought that was her.
That's my.
I really like white fluffy things. So that's the cat bed in the background she's never touched. And I've got my blanket, and then he's sitting on like a fur. This is from our living room we brought in. And then there's also a fluffy dog in the background. So she's somewhere. You just can't see her. You can see a tiny little corner under your right there.
I don't even know that that's her.
Is that her? I don't know. Anyway, feminine support, atmosphere, aroma of the home. Yeah, not bringing more drama into your life, and that like for context, he works 12-hour days through the summer.
Well,
most of the time, or longer.
Not anymore. When I was in Colorado working for Justin, I was doing 12-hour days.
Yeah.
Here it's like a max of 4 10s.
Yeah. But it's like they're long days. He's gone a lot and he helps out with stuff on weekends and
I did work yesterday too.
And sometimes
today's Sunday.
Yeah, and sometimes he works on the weekends and things like that. So for him, like he's gone a lot and doing a lot of heavy labor and still like we go do groceries together, we go run errands together, and like we have a family day every Friday, and that's like what we do. And so that's a big component of this is I think for me, at least for our relationship, like I work and I work a lot, but I'm working from the comfort and security of my home. And I'm, like I'm able to take moments here and there and go do other things or clean or do food or whatever. And, like that's how our relationship works. That's the way that we like it. So I think for each relationship, you do have to determine, like, we don't have kids yet, so kids being in the picture would look very different with responsibility. But I think each relationship, I think it's really important for the woman to understand that like the way that he works and the way that you work are very, very different. And it's so important for you to create the space and the atmosphere of peace, because you really get to set that tone. And that's going to look like, for some relationships, that's going to look like, just making sure that the house is calm and that you're in a good place and you're in your feminine when he comes home. Like I hold a really masculine space for my clients as a coach. And so I have about an hour before I know he comes home where I don't take any more clients, and I like do some very specific things where I'll like take a bath or I'll play calm music and light a candle and like get back into my feminine to make sure that like I'm in a place of feminine receptivity when he comes home, so that we have that polarity and I'm not like in like hustle when he gets back. And that's
because then I'm just confused.
Yeah, because then he's usually like, "Are you mad? Wait, what's going on?" And we had that conversation pretty early in our relationship too. And it showed up a couple times where he's like, what's going on? Like, are you angry? Are you overwhelmed? What's happening? And I'm like, no, I'm good, but I'm in like a drive mode. And not only is that not good for my physiology long term, I don't want to be in that space for a long time, like, just back to back, but also it kind of F's up the relationship polarity in a lot of ways, because then he's like, okay, so if we're both kind of in this like drive mode, we're both just thinking about the next thing to do, we're not like connecting. And so that's been something that we've learned, I think, pretty well to do as well. Yeah, okay. Guys, this is our first podcast.
That's not muted, is it?
No. Yeah, I think it blinks when it's muted. Yeah. Okay, y'all can still hear us? Yeah. Okay, sorry, that was really long. Guys, this is good. We're new to this. And these are not conversations that we've had this way before. Like, they're things that we talk about all the time, but it's not like this. So you asked for it, literally on Instagram. Okay. All right. What is the most empowering act or feeling as a husband? I think this means like how you feel most empowered as a husband. Is there a specific act or thing that like I can do or a wife can do to help you feel empowered as a husband? I think is what the question is.
What?
A bug just hit our window.
Something hit our window.
There's a lot of distraction.
The most empowering thing is being able, when you give me space to try to figure out what I want to do. Because like, while I'm really good at tree stuff, I don't want to do tree stuff forever.
Yeah.
So like the fact that you don't expect me to know exactly what I want to do is like, okay, cool, I can figure it out at some point. Like right now I'm trying to pay bills and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Good.
At least for me, like maybe dudes that are doing what they love is a totally different answer. And it's not that I dislike what I do, but I definitely don't want to do it forever.
What's like what is that, like a specific quality, like just like trusting you that you figured out?
Well, trust. Encouragement, like just like understanding, I guess.
Yeah.
Because if like you were all upset that I was like, if you didn't understand that I wanted to find something that I actually want to do, and you're like, well, why don't you just deal with it and like pay the bill? Like it would be a totally different.
Yeah. I feel like that's part of there's like a really fine line between expecting your husband to provide it and then also supporting him to find what he loves. And that's not something I feel like I know yet. Like, it's like, I think there's this misunderstanding that it's like, well, you want to provide, so just provide. However, you have to. That's like what I see a lot of women do, and it's at the detriment of the husband, because then he's unfulfilled in his provision, which leads to resentment.
Yeah.
Or not even resentment, but just like numbing out.
Well, yeah, eventually they bail one way or another. It's either they leave or they leave emotionally and they sit on the couch watching sports ball all day.
Sports ball. Well, yeah, that's like, in order to be the support, like as the feminine, one of our most impactful roles is support, because it's not just support financially, if that's what's necessary, and like doing whatever you need to do to make sure that like you guys are good and solid, but then also like really supporting emotionally and supporting your dreams. And so again, it's that whole, it's the like, I'll keep you safe, you keep me wild. You keep the security and the safety for me, and that allows me to then like help you or empower you to pursue your dreams. So it's like, you keep me here and then we can go from there, kind of a thing. So I feel like it's when those two things work together that there's a really good polarity, and you know what that line is. Like, you know how to balance both
needing the provision and also supporting your spouse to go do whatever they want to do. And then he does that for me in reverse, where he's like, I'm going to provide, and I want, like, there's been 3 months where I haven't brought in new clients. There's been times in our relationship, like when we first were married, that I was building this business and like I didn't have new clients. I didn't fully know what this business was going to look like. And so him stepping, like, it's not a 50-50 100% of the time. It really ebbs and flows, but it's going to show up different. Your support and provision as a female is going to look different than his support and provision as a male. And that is part of the beauty of, like, we all have those qualities in a relationship, but the feminine showing up and doing those things looks super different than the masculine showing up and doing those things. So like acknowledging that it looks different, I think brings a lot of harmony to marriage.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Oh yeah, audio. Yeah, forget audio.
I know. We're trying to remember, guys. Okay, this question was interesting, and we're gonna have to figure out what it actually means, but I think we know what it means. How to learn masculine frame when raised by parents with weak or inverted polarities. My perception of this question is like, how to learn. It was asked by a female. How to learn masculine frame. Raised by parents with weak or inverted polarities. So I'm wondering if this is like, how do you allow for masculine frame in a marriage or in a relationship if you've only seen an inverted polarity? I think from my perspective, and depending on how this question was asked, it seems to me that regardless of what this is really asking, as a female, you draw out the masculine with your femininity. So regardless of what he's doing, or if you're looking to draw in a male, that sounds a little weird. Like whether you're looking to like attract a healthy masculine presence, you like bring that out and cultivate that with your femininity. And because that's how polarity works. Like if you're in your masculine, there's not space for the masculine to show up. If you're in your feminine and you're cultivating that, you're going to bring that in. And that looks like in your marriage and your relationships, but that also looks like business partnerships. That looks like literally anything, like whatever you're wanting to draw in, if you provide the polar opposite, that thing will come in, that thing will enter. And so if you're looking to, if you want to have a healthy masculine in your life, make sure that you're creating space for that and you're not in your masculine filling it up. So I think like whether that's because you already have a partner and the partner's not being in his masculine, or you're inverted and you're in your masculine and you want to go into your feminine, like you literally just start taking steps towards your feminine. And that will allow the masculine to show up. So that would be things like slowing the heck down, like leaning into cycle syncing. That's a really good way because that'll reconnect you to your body. And women experience life as we move through it, as we feel through it, not as we perceive it. So like you are actively in all of your senses when you're in your feminine. And when you're feeling nourished and you're enjoying yourself, like pleasure is one of the best ways to access your feminine, because we're designed with pleasure biologically. Like we can talk about that in another podcast, but like your biology is designed for pleasure and for comfort, because we're looking at long-term health, and comfort is one of the best ways to predict long-term health. So that's what I would say for that. If you're talking about creating a masculine frame, like in your business, if you don't have a man in your life to hold that space for you, so masculine frame being like a structure that holds them, like that creates masculinity so that you can be in your feminine, I would look at automate, delegate, optimize. So your systems, your structures, things that are consistent day in and day out, that's your masculine in your life. So life or business, it doesn't matter. So that can look like grocery pickup. That can look like hiring help with like a house cleaner. That can look like automating your bills, like bill pay. That can look like having a good CRM in a business. Anything that creates structure that's consistent day in and day out is your masculine. That's like your go-to, and that will allow your feminine to be more free and flexible and expressive. So that's kind of how I would describe that. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, I don't really even know how to.
I think that was like kind of specific to feminine.
Yeah, because I'm like,
masculine will show the hell up when you are in your feminine. That's the gist of it.
Sure. I have zero.
And vice versa. Like when men are in their masculine and they're in their healthy masculine, women flock to them. Like every time we go somewhere, still, it's like I can be right there with him with my wedding ring on, and all of the girls are like staring at him, and it drives me crazy. There was this one time we were at the zoo. He doesn't see it.
I don't.
He doesn't see it, which I love because he's not like full of himself and waiting for people to stare at him, and that would make you feel really uncomfortable.
I'll be like, how are you staring? Piss off.
One time we were at the zoo. We were at the zoo, and we had just had this conversation in the car, and I was like
dating.
We were dating.
Yeah.
And I was like, I will count how many women stare at you. Like, because they're not paying attention to me, they're paying attention to you. So I'll watch and I will tell you. And I think I counted 7 in like the couple hours that we were at the zoo. And I was like, look, another one. He's like, what are you talking about? I was like, she literally heard her friend stopped and they stared at you and she nudged her friend. Like, it's easy to see when you're a female because I'm looking out for it and I'm like, back off. I didn't have a wedding ring at that point. That was one of my motivating factors because I was like, I'm about to go up there. I'm going to get real mad. Now I don't care. I'm like, yes, you're right. He's hot. Do you want to learn how to be a good supportive female? And you can, have a cool, legit husband who's hot. So anyway, that's that. Okay. All right. So we kind of answered that. 3 most important traits of masculinity. Like, what are your top things that you're like, masculine is, a good man is, or has?
Responsible for his actions.
Yes.
Disciplined, knowing that things he's good. Like at some point, he's going to have to do things he doesn't want to do, just for the goodness of himself and the relationship. And like yesterday, I didn't really want to work yesterday.
Yeah.
But we need the money, so it's like
you do things you don't want to do all the time.
Yeah, and that was like I learned that mostly from working out and stuff. Like there's days that you're not gonna want to work out, but the only way you improve in anything is sometimes you gotta do stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
The responsibility thing, taking responsibility for what you do. And whether you've like if you screwed something up, you gotta fix it. You have one version of it and I have to drop it.
Radical responsibility. Yeah. And then Jocko's?
Yeah.
I don't remember mine.
Why can't I remember that?
Discipline equals free.
No. That's not helpful at all.
Sorry. Extreme ownership.
Yeah. But we're like, okay, well, you got to own your own shit.
Yeah.
There's the first swear word.
Yeah.
You like, if you're not taking responsibility for like, if you're in a bad mood, take responsibility for your bad mood.
Yeah.
Be like, deal with it, get over it, move on. Like you're responsible for how you respond to things.
Yeah.
Your responsibility, your ability to respond to things is completely dependent on like, oh, I got emotional, I got mad, whatever. Like, deal with it, get over it, because like you're allowing that.
Yeah.
Which goes hand in hand with the discipline part of that. Because like, if you don't have the discipline to be responsible or to own your own shit, like it's just going to go downhill.
Yeah.
And that's 2.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you've told me a couple of times that has really stuck out to me is this idea of like a harmless, like Jordan Peterson, a harmless man is not a good man.
Yeah.
Like the power of a man is in his danger. His ability to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, and so doing hard things and taking radical responsibility or extreme ownership is what makes a good man because it's him accepting his power and knowing he's capable of harm,
being responsible,
and then being responsible for it, and then also intentionally putting himself in challenging situations that push him to his edge, so that he knows where his edge is, so that he can be cognizant of it, but then also know how to continuously increase his capacity for hard things, so that he can stay in control of that dangerousness, like in control of that power. Whereas the flip of that is like, a woman's greatest power is in her ability to nurture and heal. And so like we continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper into ourselves and into our wisdom, and into like the most challenging thing a woman will do is like be so soft and so vulnerable and so in her nurturing that she's challenged because it feels unsafe.
I have to answer the third thing before you go, because
so those two things are really important for masculine.
Because otherwise I'm going to forget.
Yeah.
So in terms of like, yes, dangerous. You have to like, dude that's peaceful or harmless because he's harmless is not a good man. It's a man that's dangerous who has it under control.
Yeah.
In relation to that, the other third thing would be learning in the context of being humble, or vice versa. Like if he has to take he's got to take ownership of stuff and responsibility.
Yeah.
If he's not humble enough to learn from either mistakes or other things going wrong, if he's too arrogant and thinks he's always right on stuff, and he's not learning every day and changing every day from stuff that he's learned the previous day.
Yeah.
If he's not able to learn and adapt every day.
Yeah.
Like if there's no growth and he's not learning, then
Yeah. If you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
That is really, really important.
Ownership, discipline, and humility / learning.
Yeah, I totally agree.
They're there.
Those are things to look for in a dude, because it's like I remember talking to you about that. I remember talking to Maya about that, of like when we first started dating, was one of the things, and still to this day, one of the things that I respected most about you is that you were willing to learn, and that you knew you didn't know everything, because especially when you're looking at a guy, when you're dating him, if he's willing to learn, then you know your relationship will continue to grow and deepen. If he's not willing to learn, you're cutting yourself off at the knees. Like that's as far as it'll go, because he's not gonna change. And so like finding a guy that you accept exactly as he is, but then also allowing, like making sure that he's somebody who wants to continue to learn and evolve with you, will keep your relationship strong.
Don't try to change a guy.
Don't try.
That's a poor decision.
Well, this is one of the questions. Make sure.
Did you have anything else you want to add? I had to interrupt you because otherwise I was going to forget what the third one was.
No, okay.
I was like, I'm not going to forget because you're going to keep going. I'm going to do this. I don't want to interrupt. I'm sorry, but Beyonce, whatever. That was a Kanye moment. I'm like, hold on. That's a totally misquoted thing. I know that's not what the quote is, but it's something close to that.
But this is a podcast, and it's one of the few unregulated.
And I'm old, and I don't remember that moment specifically.
Unregulated.
But I know what happened.
Shoot. Oh, how do women emasculate men?
Talking down to them.
What were we just talking about though? Just before Kanye.
Learning. Dudes that want to learn.
Don't try to change him. Yeah, okay, so emasculating him. So trying to change him, that's not a good start.
Yeah, well, that's not a good start, especially if he's just got, if you're like, I really like him, but he's got shitty qualities, and probably don't try to change him, because it's just...
Yeah, that's not going to get better.
Giving the dude the power of a woman that supports him while he's being a douche is going to make it worse.
Yeah, because women amplify whatever the man gives her. This is super important. Women who are listening to this, you will literally exacerbate or amplify anything you get from a man. So he gives you a sperm, you give him a baby. He gives you a house, you give him a home. He gives you douchey qualities, you will exacerbate that. So you are an amplifier. That is one of the coolest things about women. So be very, very aware of what you're amplifying, because that is in your power to do.
That, like, women can either be a dude's superpower or their biggest weakness.
Yeah.
And it's totally dependent. It's mostly dependent on the dude's personality. Because if the dude's a douche and he attracts women that are like, oh, he's just a bad boy, and it's like, then it'll just get worse because he's gonna go do more. It's like,
yeah.
I'm a little bit of a nerd. Captain America thing, the whole first one where he gets the little serum and it's like, this will just amplify whatever you already are. Yeah. It's the same kind of fucking thing.
Yeah.
Second short, first up on like fourth shit phone. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's super true. Yeah. It'll amplify.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Yeah. Done. That's okay. So emasculating man is trying to change him. Also, guys, if you're trying to change a man, it's automatically coming from your masculine. It's not coming from your feminine, because it's you seeing his potential and trying to force it and forcing his masculine quality. If you genuinely want to change a man, you accept him exactly as he is, without any exceptions. You just accept him exactly as he is,
which is where the learning quality is super important,
and empower him to grow. That is literally like you cannot change a man. You can empower him to bring out the fullness of him, but you cannot change him. And that's like, that will make or break a relationship, so be aware of that. So emasculating man is like, yeah, and I think that's where, like, if you don't believe in his ability to grow, you'll talk down to him. And that's emasculating. And like not trusting him. This is me talking.
Go for it.
They want
like, I gave my 2 cents. I was like, being talked down to is like the biggest, like, if I came home and you just bitched at me because I didn't do something, or like I didn't take out the trash, or like, if I'm not doing the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing, somehow, that's like the biggest thing.
Yeah. One thing I heard recently they just put it really well was like, shoot, dang it, we'll come back to that if I remember. I really want to. Anyway, yeah. I feel like a lot of these questions are all very similarly themed. Like, they're all asking very similar questions. And it's like, I think the beauty of all of this is it's actually really quite simple. Because it's like, you learn, be humble, like take responsibility for your crap, and like allow yourself to be in your masculine. And then me, same thing, but allow myself to be in the feminine. And all of these questions kind of become obsolete because you learn how to dance with each other very, very smoothly. It can be really simple. I think in the world of like theology and overly analytical people, everybody wants to have really, really fancy questions and overcomplicate the responses. And in reality, it's like we kind of are going to talk about this in circles because it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's really like you have the ability to create harmony in your relationship by simply being authentic to your design, male, female. Like, that really will create harmony in your relationship. Two genders. You believe in 2 genders, folks.
I identify as a houseplant.
Yeah. I identify as a houseplant. I need sun. I need warmth. I need cold. I need water. No, it's too much water.
I'm turning yellow. I'm jaundiced.
I want the sun. No, it's burning. Yeah.
It's all simple.
We had a question. Do we argue? If we argue, how do we deal with that?
We don't argue much. It's kind of like well, I hate to be that. We don't argue very, like,
I don't hate to do that. I love that.
Well, no, I love that, but it's like I don't have a helpful answer because it's like usually if you're arguing, it's because someone is too arrogant to accept that there's a different viewpoint.
Yeah, or they're seeing this situation through a very filtered lens, and it's making them see things.
Like it comes from like I feel like the bigger arguments come from not being willing to see the other person's side of it, and then also not owning the fact that you're responsible for your own reaction to whatever the argument is.
Yeah, my mom always said it takes two to tango. She always said that, and in arguments, not always, but as a sweeping statement, always.
So if you're dancing, it also takes two.
If there was an argument, she would literally always say that. She'd go, well, it takes two to tango. And that stuck with me because it's like, if you are in an argument with a person, you have some involvement, and it takes one person changing the steps for the dance to change. And so I think that's something that's been really cool in our relationship. It's like, especially at the beginning of our relationship, and now we've like been able to vocalize it, but when we first started dating, like if it started to amplify and we started to get a little bit agitated, he would always touch me every single time. And I did not realize that was part of what's going on.
I got lots of hair going on. That's all.
He's not in front of the camera ever, so he feels uncomfortable. And like Wolverine. But that was something, hey, I'm trying to that was something that was really helpful. Was like every time I would start to get like agitated about something, he would touch me, and that would instantly, like, my nervous system would chill, and not because he was like being obnoxious. Like, I realized the moms who are like oversensitized all the time are going to be like, that's not, or overstimulated all the time, they're going to be like, that wouldn't help me. But like within the context of what was going on, and still is, like, and how he did it was literally just like grounding, and like would always ask me, okay, what do you need? And like, he would always bring the conversation back down. And that's super, super important with the relationship. And I didn't realize that was something that I needed in arguments. I am not a huge arguer generally, because I don't see the value in yelling at each other, because that's just everybody trying to be louder, and that's not going to communicate anything. But if I was starting to get amplified, he would like immediately bring me back down. And again, that's one of the beauties of like, if he's got the steadiness, and he knows his power, and he knows that like he has never raised his voice at me, he has never raised a hand to me. Obviously we would not be on this podcast if that was the situation. And it's because he has devoted himself to understanding his power. Like, honestly, like it's not, so in those types of situations, it's not like hard. I mean, I don't know, is it hard if I start getting like antsy?
No,
probably not, because it's like, you don't act like it's hard. You're like, okay, that's okay. But he hears me. It's not that he's not like, okay, little lamb. It's like he's not being like,
there, tiny one.
He's not being dumb. He's just being like, I understand that there's something going on. What do you need? But it's never we're not directing things at each other. We're directing things at a situation. And so that immediately like resolves stuff. And also I used to hear like, don't ever go to bed angry, because I think somewhere in the Bible it says, don't ever let the sun set on your anger, or something like that. And that is one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever heard, because like, more than likely you're in an amped up state for whatever reason, and you need a break. You need to go have time by yourself to like calm down. You don't need to verbally process it in anger. That's not processing it. That is re-aggravating the experience.
I think that's part of what that means, though.
Don't let the sun go down.
Yeah. Don't get it, like, that doesn't mean you have to figure it out right then. That means you just need time. I think that's part of what that means.
I don't know. I always heard
that, at least that's in my interpretation of that, is that like, doesn't necessarily mean it has to be figured out before you go to bed, and then you're not like,
just like, don't go to bed.
But it's like, yeah. It's like, it doesn't have to be answered now, but like, at least end on good terms.
Healthy perspective of it. Growing up, that's not what I heard.
No.
Growing up, it was always like, and I hear that from people too now. Women say that, like, I shouldn't like we should stay up all night until it's resolved. And it's like, don't do that. That's not gonna work. And like going after him and demanding a resolution in the moment, because we want peace. And so we think that whatever, like we'll do whatever we think is going to bring peace. And if we think that we're going to get peace by demanding a resolution immediately, like that's not actually going to serve anybody. What's going to bring peace most of the time is giving yourself a ton of space, go vent it out in your journal, and then go from there. Like allow all of the fluff and all of the heightened state to come out in a journal entry, and then go have a conversation when you're coherent. That's really helpful. And being aware of too, as a female, like if you're in your luteal phase and you've got hormones that are making you PMSy, you take responsibility for that. That is huge. Like if you're like, well, I just want to chop my husband's head off every time I'm PMSing, that's on you. That's not on him. And you don't get to put that on him. And that's part of why I'm so like passionate about cycle syncing, is understanding that when you're in that phase, the left and right hemispheres of your brain are super, super heightened. And so that means that subconscious things are coming up into the conscious in order to be released. And so that's why you have heightened emotions. It's literally so that you can resolve them and purge them, but that doesn't give you permission to take it out on the spouse.
That is an answer. That's a good segue into one of the questions that you asked about my perspective of the cycle syncing thing. It's going back to the ownership part of it, which I think everyone should be able to own and be responsible for their own stuff. But like if you didn't cycle sync and it was just like by the seat of your pants, like because you're a woman and that's how your body works, you should be able to understand and own the fact that that's what's going on. So that's my perspective on cycle syncing, is because it's like, well, you're a woman and you want to be a woman, you should clearly understand what's going on in your body just as much as I try to understand what's going on with mine. Like, not that the women have a much more complicated version of that than dudes do. Yeah. But still, it's like, if this dictates emotions and stuff, you should be responsible for at least owning part of it. Yeah. Yeah. Like, so why wouldn't I want you to do cycle syncing stuff? Yeah. Because it makes you more aware of it, and then in turn I become more aware of it because you're more aware of it. Yeah, and then you can support me through it rather than be like, I have to leave the house for 4 days before she starts her period. That's not good for anybody. And what happens instead is it like gives you the ability to resolve things in your relationship. Because if I experience something over and over, like a couple months in a row, usually if I have something that's like aggravating, or I'm like, I really need to talk to him about this one thing, I'll give it 2 or 3 cycles, like 2 or 3 months, to see if it comes up consistently or if it was a fluke. Because sometimes things will come up and you're like, I just need to like blah, and you can process through it. I'll do somatic work, I'll do journaling, I'll just like cry it out, I'll whatever you need to do to like process it all the way through. I'll let that happen 1 month. And if it goes through 2 or 3 months and it still is showing up and I'm seeing it consistently, then I bring it to him and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. But it's not like you're doing this thing to me, blah, 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 blah. It's like, hey, you know what's happening? I'm seeing this thing show up over and over. Can we talk about it? And a really good example of that was like when we first started dating. I remember I was having a really hard time 1 month because we're not like a buy me chocolates and roses kind of couple. He is so good at like being romantic in non-cliche Hollywoodized versions. So good at that. And so I think I'm terrible at it, but that's different.
And this is a conversation that we talk about a lot, because there's like an expectation of romance because of what we have learned from Hollywood, and like this is what romance looks like. And then there's like true romance is intentionality. That's really all it is. Like when we see it in Hollywood, it's like he's being intentional about what flowers she likes and what chocolates she likes. And he's bringing it to her as the surprise to say, I was thinking about you, and here's how I express my emotion or express my love for you in a way that's not me trying to explain it. Like that's really all it is these are these like external representations of something going on inside, which he does really well all the time. Like all the time. Every single night, almost every single night, he like turns down the bed for me. He goes and turns on our fan. He turns off the light. He turns on the lamp. He closes the shades. Like he prepares the space for me to sleep, because I go to sleep 3 hours before he does typically. So So that's huge, is like, though that to me is much more romantic than him bringing me chocolates or flowers or whatever. And he learned how to do those things too as we've gone through our marriage, but those are not the things that I find romantic. But early on in our relationship, I remember there was one Valentine's Day. I can't remember. I think you got me flowers. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I remember.
I don't know which situation you're talking about, so I'm just going to keep listening.
It's fine. There was one, and this is an example, is like, I was having this experience where I was like, he doesn't, like, I don't feel like he's romancing me. I don't feel like he's like getting me the flowers, and it's Valentine's Day and this should be special, even though we had conversations about like Valentine's Day is not really a day that we celebrate because we'd so much rather express our love like every day and be intentional and like surprise each other with gifts here and there, just when we're genuinely thinking about one another, not in like an obligatory way. And I realized that whatever was happening, I was in my luteal phase, and I was like, this might be a fluke. Like, I'm gonna give this 1 or 2 rotations and see what happens. And like, I had this whole awareness at this right after I realized I was in my luteal phase. I was like, oh, actually, for me, romance means intentionality, and here are all of the ways that he romances me. And also, I'm not meeting this need for myself, and I'm looking for something from him because I'm not actually meeting it for myself. And that was literally like slowing down and taking time for myself and doing some things that I love by myself, which was, at the time, it was like going to the mountains. And I think I scheduled like a mountain day with my best friend after that. But I was literally looking for him to meet a need that I was needing to meet for myself. And I only had that awareness because I was like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase. Is this about him or is this about me? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be about me, like myself. It's going to be about the woman and something going on in her and a need that she needs to meet herself. And then if there's something else that like is within the partnership dynamic, then go that route. But like, that was a very eye-opening one for me. So now if something's going on, I give it a couple of months, unless I know for sure. It's like, this is not an emotional, hormonal, or like subconscious thing that I need to process and resolve on my own. If it's like, hey, urgent, this needs to happen, I'll address it. But I always come at it from like, hey, this is what's going on in me and I'm not sure what to do about it. Can we talk about this? And then it's like, everything's diffused. Let's go into this as like, cool, let's figure out a solution, not you're doing something wrong. Because that's not helpful in any kind of conflict. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cycle syncing is good, folks. Brings harmony to all relationships. And frick. I don't want to make sure we answer a couple of the questions that are different. Red flags to look for in dating a guy, how to tell if he's a man or a boy.
I mean, that goes very hand in hand with the 3 things the 3 masculine things. Ownership.
Yeah.
Learning, humility.
Yeah.
Learning in context of being humble. And the discipline thing.
Yeah. And yeah.
Like, if the dude's like, oh man. For me, it's one of those things I have to deal with enough dudes that I've had working for me and under me and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, nope, like almost instantly. Because it's almost like a, you know, when you see it kind of thing. Trying to describe that as what to look out for
quality
is kind of hard.
I mean, I think
other than like those 3 things, I think cover a big.
Yeah, like what to look for.
Yeah.
Will help you to also know what not to look or what to look out for.
Like, biggest thing to look out for is a dude who's lazy.
Yeah. And somebody who doesn't, if he treats certain people different than other people, doesn't matter who they are, like if he's not consistent with how he treats all of humanity, you need to watch out, because that means that there's a hierarchical value system in his mind. And that can be like if he treats waiters differently than you, or if he treats his mom differently than, you know, a girl on the street or whatever. Like, you want to look for how he treats those who are in authority over him and those who serve under him. Well, I mean, like, but like
that's because I have an issue with authority, but that's
not the title of authority, but like humans. If he treats the quality of humanity with respect, like he honors the humanity in each person. I think that'll tell you a lot about somebody, and that'll tell you if they're two-faced or not too. Because if you notice that he's treating a waiter like crap and he's treating you like a princess, run the other direction. Because that can flip on its head at any moment. So that would be my only other addition, would be like, look for consistencies. Especially in a man, you want to look for how consistent is he day to day with whatever it is that he's committed to. Like, that will tell you a lot about his stability.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other things, but I got nothing coming.
I think those are good.
Yeah.
We had top 3, so that's top 4, I think.
The 4.
I have like consistency and then your thing.
Well, I thought it was what to look out for.
Yeah. Did I say top 3? I don't know.
I don't know,
guys. We're fading. We're gonna answer one more question, and then if you guys want more of this, we'll do another one. There's actually quite a few on. There's quite a few on communication. I think the best way to ask this would be like, how do I communicate with you in a way that feels like good? What's your, yeah.
Not sure here.
How?
Say it again.
Like, how can I communicate with you in a way that feels like it's non-reactive and you can be open with communication? When do you feel safe to communicate?
Well, I'm not being. Well, that's where I feel like my only real answer is being redundant again and not being talked down to.
Yeah.
Like, when it's like when you have respect for where I'm at, whether it's tired or like whatever it may be, and it's not like, well, the fact that you don't know this is just like that. Like, like again, if you can have space where I'm at and not just expect me to be like squared away and like know exactly what's happening all the time. And it's like,
like don't expect him to be like clued into your every waking thought. Like,
yes.
Set the tone.
Please.
I still do this. I'm so guilty of this. And he's like, hold on, I have no context. And I'm like, wait, okay. Clue him in a sweet way to what's going on. So for example, again, you set the tone, right? So like, hey, I was thinking about X, Y, and Z. Can we have a conversation about it? Can we talk about that? Do you have space to talk about that? Like, see where he's at. Because honestly, again, you want to remember, men are like waffles, women are like spaghetti. If he's in a very specific waffle box and I'm just like spewing all of this stuff, he's not ignoring me. He's singularly focused. That allows him to go fast and go far with whatever it is that he's focusing on. But if I'm like over here cooking dinner and I have like this side conversation going on text and I'm talking to him about something and I'm just like having conversation, he's not going to think that I'm really being intentional about the conversation. He's probably going to be like, she just needs to talk it out and I'm going to be here and just like hold space for that, but I'm not actually paying attention. Or he's going to be so in his box of whatever it is he's thinking about. Like, you have to invite him into your space. Don't just be like, here's all of the things I'm thinking today.
Here's the box to aim for.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, there's been times where I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's okay. But like, know that questions you can ask, like you can ask him very specific questions to set the tone for the conversation if you are not just venting and you need something out of it. I have asked him before, and I do tell him this sometimes, like, hey, can I just process this through with you? And he's like, yeah. His like presence, he gives me quality presence all of the time, no matter what. Like, he's there. But the type of presence that he's going to provide for me in that kind of a context versus, hey, there's something that I'm dealing with that's really difficult and I really need to talk about it. And like, I need your thoughts on this. Can you, like, do you have space for that? That's a totally different presence than like, hey, this is what was going on at work and I'm just going to like talk through it. Or I just need to verbally process with someone. Can you hold space for that? And truthfully, I think verbally processing for the most part needs to be done with your girlfriends. For the most part, I think that's part of the community and value of female friendships. But oh gosh, I keep doing that. I keep choking a little bit. I'm talking too fast. For the sake of this conversation, like I need to vent about this specific thing, or I just need to like I need the masculine presence. I need like your stability to just like hold space for what I need to talk about, and that's cool.
Especially in the marriage context, because if you were just ranting to like Maya or something about stuff that was going on with us, and you never talked to me about it, it'd be weird.
Yeah. That's like a whole other conversation. Is like speaking about your husband with the utmost respect at all times. It doesn't matter if it's your best friend or a random chick in a networking group or another guy. Well, you better not be like, well, anyway, like, it doesn't matter. Like, speaking about your husband with and honoring him is so important, and that will translate into your relationship, whether you hear him or not, because what you focus on amplifies. So if you're like,
well, goes back to the whole talking down thing, because eventually, if you do that enough to other people, it'll end up coming out to him.
To yourself, And again, because women, we are beings of the in-between. And so if the things that others pick up on, the things that our guys are going to pick up on are all of the nuances that you don't speak. Like, your silence is the loudest thing to a guy. So knowing that, and knowing that the tone, the atmosphere, all of these words that I've been using, the aroma of the home, like, this is all, like, you cultivate the spaces in between and all of the nuances and all of the things on the periphery. So the way that you show up in your relationship has a lot to do with how you're showing up in those in-between spaces, and when you're not with your husband, and how you're cultivating your feminine. All of that comes back to your relationship with your spouse and to his empowerment and the health of your relationship. So don't underestimate like all of those other things, and like the power of you setting the tone and the aroma of the home. All right, that's it.
Suddenly, we're done.
We are figuring this out together, everybody. And I'm really hoping the audio is good, and I'm hoping that we were coherent.
If we have to do this again, I'm going to be upset.
I know. We'll just go on a live and people just thank you for doing this.
Yeah.
I know it's weird. This is like a weird type of. It's a weird type of, like, we're not connecting with anybody. We're literally talking into a microphone in my office. So it feels like a weird, like, we're here together. But when I'm alone, I can go into like a weird little imaginative state of like, I'm talking to all of my BFFs. And with you, it's like, I want to talk to you, but I have to talk to the microphone. It's a very weird kind of dynamic. So thanks.
You're welcome.
And thank you, everybody, for listening. And let us know how you like it. Let us know if you want to hear Daniel talk again, or if you want to hear him speak about certain things. We'll get him more comfortable on this.
I'm going to be like this forever. I don't know what you're talking about. This is just me.
Well,
there's not different versions of me.
No, but there might be questions that are easier to answer. I feel like I need more clarity on some of these questions, and I should have clarified them beforehand.
Then ask him again in a different way.
Yeah.
I did the best I could.
You did everything. All right. Thanks all, and we'll talk to you. Well, he may not talk to you ever again, but I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, true. I mean, if you don't want me back, then I'll come back.
It's gonna be a one and done. Okay, bye.